transport has always had a big impact on the real estate industry. If you go back over the last 300-400 years and you look at the introduction of canals, for example, or the first railway lines, or the car and the automobile sort of rollout across the country, you look at how cities have changed. Cities were very, very densely populated but small places for a long period of time, and now they have spread and spread and spread. And the pushback on the autonomous vehicle, the question I was getting on the autonomous vehicles was, surely this will just lead to urban sprawl, because now people can travel for perhaps lower cost eventually, but also without the hassle of travel. You can watch a movie, or you can do some work, or whatever you want to do in your autonomous vehicle, and you don't have to worry about the time spent commuting. So your cost of your journey, whether it be financial, but also in terms of time, reduces. And I didn't like that answer because it felt too simplistic. And I'm someone who doesn't like simplistic answers to questions, because I don't think that's ever the case. So what we did is we looked at two different types of cities. We looked at London and I looked at Phoenix, taking my experience from being over there. And what we think is that in a city like Phoenix, yes, sprawl could certainly happen. It's made for cars, that city, and I think it will, the lowering of cost of travel, you could see moving out and out and out. Somewhere like London, which is more densely populated, which has an extensive public transport network, and will continue to have the green belt very likely as well, there will be a different dynamic there. We think in somewhere like London, let's just talk about London today rather than Phoenix. So in somewhere like London, we think the city centre will continue to do well. Sounds perhaps counterintuitive, but what drives the city centre is often how many people can get into that space. And yes, by autonomous vehicle, perhaps slightly more people can get into the city centre, but we don't think most journeys actually into central London will be autonomous vehicles. You may zip around, like the black cabs give you that option at the moment, but really it's about, if you live branch line outside of London, suddenly it's a lot easier to get into your mainline station and you can come into the city. So if you're an employer and you have an office in the City of London, you now have access to a greater number of people. So again, that's very, very helpful for somewhere like central London. We think the inner suburbs is a mixed outcome there. It's not necessarily fully positive for the inner suburbs, because some inner suburbs are expensive because they're close to the city centre. And if actually accessibility has improved, the inner suburbs need to find a different reason for being, let's say. And I think in time, there will be improvements in the inner suburbs. I think traffic will be reduced even further. I think the need for on-street parking will be reduced, and that could allow a more village feel, improved environmental feel to these inner suburbs. But I think it will take time. I think they will need to find their place and transform. And I think if the only reason that your inner suburb was expensive was that you were close to central London, then I think that's not enough with these changes that come with autonomous vehicles. I think the outer suburbs are fascinating. So when you get out to places like maybe Orpington, or let's say you're going up to Watford or others, I think a lot of those places are, today they work as commuter locations, but I think you find that land values fall quite quickly as you get further and further away from the stations. And I think what could happen here with autonomous vehicles, and not just autonomous cars, let's remember it could be autonomous buses, for example, and other forms, that you see a raising or a leveling of the gradient of land values in those other locations. So being next to let's say you're by Watford Junction, being next to Watford Junction right now, your house would be expensive today. If you needed to walk 25 minutes to get to Watford Junction, the land value will fall quite quickly, because that's a difficulty, let's say. If, though, in the future you have much better access to your location 25 minutes away from Watford Junction, that accessibility allows land values to rise. It opens up opportunities for the development of residential space as well. So I think for some and perhaps intrepid developers, investors, there will be opportunities there for outer suburb residential development as well, to take advantage of that increased in accessibility. And that's what history teaches us, that increased accessibility does benefit land values and real estate pricing as well. So if we open up that accessibility as well. I won't go through the myriad of all locations and going out to Tunbridge Wells and Sevenoaks, but I think it's not just residential. I think we need to think about what are the implications for logistics. If you have 24-hour logistics, as you get autonomous delivery in your cities, and again could increase the appeal of more urban logistics locations, as well as you get perhaps increased access, increased usage of your logistics space. We need to be careful about noise and the implications of that, but nonetheless I think there's opportunities there. And then for retail, I think again we go back to that retail park discussion. It's interesting. I'm contradicting myself here, because I think going back to your wellness park, for example, accessibility is really important. But will parking be as important going forward as well? Again, if your cost of your autonomous journey does fall, it should fall below taxis. If it falls below private car ownership, then if many journeys move onto autonomous vehicles, you don't need to park at your retail park. So does that reduce the appeal of retail parks? Because that's one of your raison d'etres for a retail park, is you've got free parking and it's easy accessibility. Does it increase the opportunities though within that retail park?
In terms of developing the space
that you can develop, but also retail parks are typically accessible as well. So put the parking aside, road transport, road access to those parks is still pretty good as well. So I think it doesn't fully diminish the appeal of the accessibility of retail parks, but I think you need to think about the opportunities there as well. So I think that autonomous vehicles could certainly have huge impact across different parts of the real estate market. It does sound futuristic, and look, I don't think this is something that will materially impact the real estate market over the next 5 years, but they're coming to London next year. Many of us have seen the announcement by Waymo, and there are other firms as well looking into London, starting to operate in London from next year. But 5 years is nothing in a real estate perspective. Many core investors will underwrite for a 10-year hold period. And underwriting for a 10-year hold period doesn't mean you stop thinking about it in 10 years' time. You need to think about your next buyer and how they're going to underwrite in 10 years' time. So really, you need to have a perspective that runs out for 15 to 20 years, which is, it's madness to say that any of us can predict 20 years down the line. Of course,
but hence 2040.
But it's important, it's important that we think out that far and at least consider what are the implications of these big technological changes for not just the real estate industry, but also the structure of our cities and how they operate.